Ever notice that the second you open the seat map, it's like the plane is mysteriously sold out of every decent seat? All that's left are middle seats near the back. The good rows up front look blocked, and the only way out is tapping that little button that says extra $30. That's not bad luck. That's the seat map doing exactly what it's designed to do. And once you understand the trick, you're going to be mad you didn't know it sooner. This video will tell you the truth. Also, we're going to show you the one seat you should avoid on basically any plane, where to sit if turbulence makes you miserable, the couple's move that can score you a whole row more often than you'd think, and how free upgrades actually happen now. By the end of this video, you'll be picking seats like you fly for a living. A lot of the time, that seat barely reclines, or doesn't recline at all, because there's a wall right behind you. And you're usually way too close to the lavs, so it turns into a little hallway hangout. People lining up, the door swinging, someone basically living next to your elbow. Now, sure, some folks actually like the back because on a light flight, it can feel less crowded, and once in a while you luck into empty seats nearby. But most people back there didn't choose it. They got stuck. And here's what catches people off guard. The back can feel rougher when the air gets bumpy. And when you land, you're usually getting off later because everybody in front of you has to clear out first. If you're forced to sit near the back, follow one rule. Don't sit right on top of the lavs or the galley. Even 2 or 3 rows away can save the whole flight. Speaking of bumpy air, if turbulence is the thing that wrecks your mood, where you sit matters way more than people realize. The smoothest ride is usually right around the wings. That's basically the plane's balance point. When the aircraft rocks or dips, the front and the back swing more, and that middle zone is where you feel it less. So before you hit confirm, take 2 seconds to peek at the seat map. Find where the wing lines up with the cabin. That's your target. And honestly, the sweet spot is often right over the wing or a row or 2 behind it. And if you're super motion sensitive, a couple small moves help. You should choose an aisle seat so you can look down the length of the cabin at something steady. You also should skip the pre-boarding coffee. Caffeine plus a queasy stomach is not a fun combo. Keep water coming, and toss a few ginger chews in your bag, or even ginger tea bags if that's your vibe. There's actual research showing ginger can help with nausea, and even if you're skeptical, it's cheap insurance. Turbulence isn't the only flight killer. Sometimes it's the noise, like you're trapped in a moving food court. The good news is, it's not random. It usually comes from 3 places: the aircraft itself, other passengers, and the crew working the cabin. On a lot of jets, it can feel quieter if you sit a bit ahead of the engines, so forward of the wing is often calmer than sitting right next to the wing. Just keep in mind, if the engines are in the back on your plane, that quiet zone shifts. And the part nobody expects is you can dodge the engine rumble and still end up annoyed because the front can be loud for a completely different reason. Sit too close to a galley and you're in the splash zone. Carts clacking, bins slamming, crew talking, people hovering for water. Passenger noise is the easiest to predict. It piles up around the lavs and galleys, so the rows right next to them feel like sitting beside a revolving door. Give yourself a few row buffer and it's noticeably calmer. If you want one simple upgrade, window seats are usually quieter because fewer people walk past you. This brings up the question people ask like there's one right answer: window or aisle. There isn't. It depends on what you need on that flight. Window is for when you want to zone out. You've got a wall to lean on. It's easier to sleep, you control the shade, and nobody's constantly brushing past you. The downside is you're kind of trapped. If you get up a lot, every bathroom trip turns into a little apology tour. Aisle is freedom. You can stand, stretch, hit the lav without climbing over anyone. And when you land, especially with a tight connection, you can move sooner. But you're exposed. Carts bump your elbow. People clip you walking by, and you're the one standing up when your row mates need out. If you know you'll need to move, circulation, stiff joints, or a small bladder, aisle usually wins. Function beats comfort in that situation. If you're flying with someone, there's a third option that can beat both window and aisle. Don't book 2 seats together. Book the window and the aisle in the same row and leave the middle open. Middle seats are the last ones to go, so if the flight isn't totally full, that seat often stays empty, and you two basically get a whole row. More space, somewhere to toss your stuff, room to breathe. And if someone does get placed in the middle, it's easy. Just ask, want the window or the aisle? You're offering them a better seat. They'll almost always say yes. You swap, and you still sit together. Best odds are usually toward the back, since those rows tend to fill later. Quick seat map check when you book, and you'll know if it's worth trying. Sometimes every trick fails. The flight's packed, every window and aisle is gone, and you're stuck in the middle. So you need a survival plan, because the middle seat is the one seat nobody picks on purpose. You're wedged between strangers, fighting for armrest space, and you usually feel warmer because you're sandwiched in. First, follow the unwritten rule. The middle seat gets both armrests. Window has the wall, aisle has the easy escape. The middle gets the armrests. Claim them early, not aggressively. Just settle in and place your elbows like it's normal. Second, put your headphones on immediately, even if nothing's playing. It's the universal not available sign. Third, wear layers. Middle seat life runs hot, and being able to take something off beats suffering through it. Not glamorous, but if you do those three things, the middle seat goes from torture to at least survivable. Here's a tiny seat hack. Just know it's not on every plane. A lot of aisle and middle armrests have a little release hidden underneath, right where the armrest attaches and pivots. It's usually a small button or skinny lever, and you'll only notice it if you actually feel around under there. If you find it and press it, the armrest can lift up. On an aisle seat, that makes it way easier to get out and stretch without wrestling the armrest. In a middle seat, if both armrests lift, you can buy yourself a couple extra inches of space. Honestly, a big deal when you're squeezed in. Just don't force it. If you don't feel a button or it doesn't move easily, drop it. Some armrests are fixed or locked on purpose. And don't mess with it during taxi, takeoff, or landing. My little habit is, I sit down, buckle up, then do a fast 3-second feel under check. If it's there, free upgrade. If you want more legroom without automatically paying for it, there are 2 seats that can feel like a cheat code: Bulkhead and Exit Row. Sometimes you even luck into one for free. Bulkhead is the row right behind a wall at the front of a cabin section. No seat in front of you means nobody reclines into your space, and you usually get a little extra room to stretch. But there are trade-offs. No underseat storage for takeoff and landing, tray tables often fold out of the armrest, and Bulkhead is where bassinets usually go, so you might end up closer to babies than you expected. Exit rows are usually the legroom champs, but they come with responsibility. You have to be able to help in an emergency and pay attention during takeoff and landing. So if that's not you, don't pick it. Also, some exit row seats don't recline, so don't assume it's perfect. And the free part? That will happen when the airline has to place someone there because other seats are gone. But if you choose it on purpose, you'll usually pay. Some people even try a risky move, checking in late at the counter and hoping those are the only seats left. Remember, it's a gamble. Because if the flight is oversold, being late can also make you easier to bump. Which brings us to when these seats actually open up, and how to time it. Remember how seat maps can feel rigged? Here's why. When you open the map and all the good seats look gone, they usually fall into 3 groups. Seats that are truly taken by real passengers, seats that are temporarily blocked, and seats that only open if you pay extra, or if your fare or status qualifies. That blocked category is where it gets confusing. Sometimes it's just operations, holding seats for families, elites, accessibility needs, or in case the aircraft changes. But sometimes, yeah, it also quietly nudges you to pay, because when the map shows only middle seats left, an upgrade suddenly feels like the only way out. And the key is those blocked seats don't stay blocked forever. As departure gets closer, the system has to release more of them so real passengers can be assigned, which is why the map can look sold out and then suddenly open up closer to departure. And there's a simple timing trick to grabbing those seats. Next. Don't only check the seat map when you book. Be ready the second online check-in opens and grab anything better that shows up. Those seats disappear fast. Then check again closer to departure because the map reshuffles as people change plans. And just so there's no confusion, this is still seat picking in your same cabin, not a surprise jump to business class. Plus, it depends on the airline and your ticket. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it still costs. And sometimes it only unlocks for certain fares or status. The airline seat map is useful, but it's also a little curated. It'll show you what's available, what's blocked, and what costs extra. What it usually won't show is the stuff that actually annoys you mid-flight, like a window seat with no real window, a row that barely reclines, or the one seat where the power outlet just doesn't exist. That's why I always take a second to verify before I lock anything in. Aerolopa is great for the nerdy details, actual aircraft layouts, where windows line up, which rows have weird restrictions, and where features disappear. Seatmaps.com is more about real-world feedback. Plug in your flight number, and you'll see people calling out the seats they love and the ones they'd never book again. 2 minutes on those sites can save you from the fake window, the aisle in the bathroom traffic lane, or a premium row that's premium in price only. And if you're aiming for more than a good economy seat, yeah, free upgrades still happen. Not like the old days, but they're not a myth. It's just less random luck now, and more the system solving a problem. Solo travelers usually have the best odds, because moving one person is easy. If the airline needs to reshuffle cabins, oversold economy, balance issues, whatever, one passenger is the cleanest puzzle piece. Checking in early can help too, but not because first check-in wins first class. It's more that when decisions get made late, being checked in and ready makes you simpler to work with than someone who's still in limbo. And yes, the gate agent matters, mostly in the way you approach them. Calm, polite, normal to deal with gets you better information and sometimes a little extra effort within the rules. Angry and demanding doesn't unlock anything. It just turns you into the fastest screen they want to clear. Also, ignore the wear a blazer and you'll get upgraded legend. That's basically over. Clothes don't beat the upgrade list. If you want the lever that actually moves things, join the airline's frequent flyer program. Even the free membership puts you on their list. And when upgrades happen, it's usually status and fare type driving the order, not vibes. Now, if you're okay paying a little but want it cheap, check the airline app around the 24-hour mark. Some airlines drop last-minute upgrade offers when they see what's left, and sometimes the price is wildly lower than it was the day before. And if you say anything at the gate, keep it simple. If you need to move someone around, I'm flexible. You're not begging. You're making their job easier. Sometimes that's exactly what gets you picked when the shuffle starts. Upgrades are nice, but on a tight connection, the only thing that matters is getting off the plane fast. Your seat makes a bigger difference than people think. The front clears first, and every few rows closer to the front can save you real minutes. Sit way back, and you might be staring at the aisle for ages before you can even stand up. Sit closer to the front, and you're moving almost immediately. For speed, aisle beats window, because you're not waiting on row mates to grab bags and step out. If you can swing it, a front half aisle seat is the best make my connection seat on the plane. And if the front is already taken, at least try to avoid the back third. That's where tight connections go to die. Seat choice matters, but sometimes the bigger factor is the airplane you're sitting in. Newer long-haul jets like the Boeing 787 and Airbus A350 tend to keep the cabin pressure and humidity at more comfortable levels than older planes, so you step off feeling less dried out and less wiped. They're usually quieter too, with bigger windows, and the lighting is designed to ease the whole "my body thinks it's 3 a.m. problem. So when you're booking, take a glance at the aircraft type. Most sites show it. If you're choosing between an older 767 and a 787 for about the same price, grab the 787. You might not obsess over it mid-flight. You'll notice it the moment you land and don't feel like you got put on spin cycle. Even the nicest plane can't rescue a seat that feels like a folding chair with branding. That's why what you bring matters, because once you sit down, the seat is locked in, but your comfort isn't. A tiny lumbar pillow is great, but honestly, a rolled-up jacket shoved into your lower back can do the same job. Most airplane seats have basically zero lower back support, so that little DIY cushion can turn a miserable seat into a manageable one. And if you fly a lot, noise-canceling headphones are one of the few things that actually feels worth the money. They don't just mute crying babies, they cut the engine drone, the galley clanking, that constant hum that drains you without you realizing it. Last one isn't glamorous, but it works. Compression socks. On flights over 4 hours, they help with circulation, especially if you're in a window or middle seat where getting up is a whole negotiation. None of this makes a bad seat amazing, but it can make a mediocre seat tolerable and a good seat feel like you did something right. Here's a move people forget. Once boarding is finished and things calm down, take a look around. If you spot an empty row or a clearly better seat, wait until a flight attendant isn't in sprint mode, then ask if you can move. Keep it casual, just a normal, polite ask. A lot of the time, they'll say yes, because at that point, seat assignments have already done their job. It doesn't always work, but asking costs nothing. And on flights with no shows, it can turn middle seat misery into, oh wow, I have space. From here on out, think of it like a routine. When you book, don't rely on the airline's seat map alone. Cross-check on Aerolopa or seat maps so you're not surprised by a fake window, a weird recline, or a seat parked in the lav galley traffic lane. Avoid the last row if you can. Stay a few rows away from bathrooms and galleys. And if turbulence messes with you, aim for the wing area. If you're flying as a pair, try the window and aisle setup and see if the middle stays empty. Then, about 23 to 24 hours before departure, be ready when check-in opens. That's when better seats often get released, and you can sometimes switch into something nicer. Peek again later, around the 12-hour-ish mark, because people change plans and the map reshuffles. At the airport, being pleasant with gate agents doesn't unlock magic, but it can unlock options. And once you're on board, do that quick post-boarding scan and politely ask if you can slide to an open spot. None of this requires elite status. None of it needs a big budget. It's just knowing when to look and what to look for. Safe travels.